Brewing Network.
My name's Justin Crosley. I'm with the Brewing Network, and we are happy to be invited here by Firestone-Walker for the Firestone-Walker Invitational Beer Fest. Yeah. Woo! As you guys know, how many people came here last year? Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about when I say that they really know how to do it right. And it's, you know, they limit ticket sales, which is somewhat unfortunate for your friends that didn't make it. But it's rad for us because the lines aren't that long, except for that one stupid Dark Lord line that snakes around the whole festival. Other than that, we get to, you know, kind of spread out a little bit and have some fun. There are rules to the Firestone-Walker Invitational Beer Fest that Matt Brynildson, he's the brewmaster there at Firestone.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
He sets the rules for the brewers. So it's not like your average festival. The Brewing Network has a festival, too, and we call brewers to come, and when I say call, we beg. But Matt has a lot of pull, so he calls them, and he gives... What are the rules to pouring at the Invitational Beer Fest?
There are very simple rules. The rules are that it's an invitational, which means you must be invited. We get a lot of phone calls saying, "Hey, bro, how do I get in your fest?" I'm like, "The invitational fest?" And they're like, "How do I get in the fest?" I'm like, "The invitational event." Yeah. So you must be invited. All these breweries are close friends of ours, people that we've collaborated with, or breweries that we are just in love with relative to the inspiration of great beer. And so... we invited people, but we said the rules are that you must come and pour your own beer, preferably an owner or a brewmaster, so that the people here in Paso Robles and all the people that bought tickets can actually learn something about the beers. And I think you feel that energy. So that's a rule. I jokingly say no salesman, no marketing. This isn't a marketing event. You're not trying to sell your beer. We're just trying to enjoy the day. We wanted to make sure that there was plenty of food, and plenty of entertainment. I'm a huge music fan. We had One Time Spaceman play last night just for the brewers, so we have a lot of just events for the brewers in and around this main event. So it's really just communing with like-minded other brewers.
And they also have to bring special beer, too. They're not allowed to bring like an off-the-shelf, which is, some of these off-the-shelf beers are wonderful. It's not that we don't like a great pale ale.
Right.
But you want something special.
We know it's always going to be warm here in Paso Robles in the summer, so we ask them to bring one session beer. That's a little open-ended, but that means lighter alcohol and something that's thirst-quenching. And then we said one special beer, just something that they're really proud of, something they want to present. As I walked around today, though, a lot of people brought their big guns and a lot of really special beer. So I think I can say there might never have been yet. I mean, JABF, there's a great collection of beers, but this is a pretty exceptional collection of beers here today.
I also like that they sort of took liberty with the session beer, because as long as if they brought a 14% something or other, then the session beer next to it can be 9%. I went to every and they're like, "Well, this is our 9% IPA. What's your session beer?" "Well, this is our 9% IPA. But it's okay. We'll do fine. Drink a lot of water." All right, and next to me here also we have Yvonne from Brynildson. And this is another example of the Firestone Invitational, where we get brewers come in from all over the world. And Brynildson is a small brewery in Brussels, right?
Yeah, indeed. We are one of the two Brussels breweries with our great friends of Cantillon.
Okay. Meaning they make good beer. If you're friends with Cantillon.
That's a sure thing. They make great beer.
Now, an interesting thing about Belgian breweries, you know, we buy a lot of Belgian beer here in the U.S., but every time I've traveled there, most Belgian brewers I talk to don't sell very much of their beer in Belgium. Is that the case for you?
No, it's exactly the contrary. Actually, most of the small Belgian breweries, they live on export. Yeah. Some of them, they might export like 85, 90, 95% of the beers. For some of them, and some of them are big stars outside the country, you will hardly find one of their beers in a pub in Belgium. We want to do the exact contrary. We are very proud to be a local brewery first, and in our philosophy, we first our city first, which is Brussels, and we must sell there over 60% of our production. Then 20% for the rest of Belgium, and we export only 20%-ish, while we could export 100%. This would not be a problem for us, but we want to be local. We strongly believe in local communities, and we have the pride of being present in all the best pubs of our beloved city.
And it's pretty unheard of, Matt. You've been a couple times, and even the bar owners that have the good Belgian beer bars now, they say the same thing. They say, we're training Belgians again about our wonderful beer history. Matt and the other brewers here, they just stole it from you and brought it to America, but you guys did it first.
Well, I think that we owe you guys a lot because you created in America a new interest for traditional styles, actually, and old methods. And actually, what happens in the US is always coming back at a certain moment in Europe and especially in Belgium. And now we see that, and this is very, very nice to see among the young generations. When I was like 20, the type of beers I make now would have been drunk by the people of 50, 60, 65 years old. Now, my clients, they are from 18 to 35 years old. So
18?
something is changing.
What's the drinking age in Belgium?
Oh, do we have that?
Yeah, there's not even... Can you reach the bar? I love it. So that's a difference for you. You really...
Yeah. The young... I always say the young generations in my country are smarter about the taste of things in general, food in general, than my generation and the older generations. And especially they now accept bitterness, which was very, very difficult to accept before, actually, for the young guys. And this is a very, very positive change. And I think that the young generations feel that they have been totally manipulated by the big agri-food industry, putting tons of sugar everywhere. They don't want that no more. They are smarter kids, and they want to go back to the roots of the real taste in general, and especially for beer, they go back to bitter flavors and sour flavors.
That's the same here, right? We're just a little ahead. Our kids, the young people here have seen good beer on the shelf for just a little bit longer. But it's the same revolution, I think, that craft beer has here. You're just catching up.
Yeah,
again.
Definitely, yeah.
So, Brewery de la Seine is pouring here. They're just behind you, a couple booths down there. The two beers that you brought, would you call them traditional Belgian-style beers?
Good question. I have no good answer. Actually, we have a very simple, maybe simplistic policy when we make a beer. We make what we want to drink, and we never care about style. But it's true that in our choice of technology, we are a lot inspired by what was done in the 1920s, 30s. And the bitterness level of our beers, which is what we like, is probably to be compared to the one of the beers of those years. We simply go back to the roots, but we make our stuff. We got a lot of inspiration by the past, and especially this is my thing, digging into the old Belgian brewing methods. I try to write a lot about that, and I love that. But we don't try to clone old things. We just get a lot of inspiration, and that's a very simple way of working we have.
Well, I recommend checking them out. The one that we have one in our glass now, which you refer to as kind of a cross between what?
Yeah, it's called Zwarte Piet, which would mean black Peter. The label is we like to mock our country a lot, and this is a mocking of our glorious past of colonialists. So we changed that. We reversed this, and Belgium became a jungle. Whatever, it's a complicated story. It's always complicated with us. But the beer itself, it's a strong, dark Belgian ale, and most people would expect something quite heavy and sweet with this. And that's not something we like, so we made it dry and bitter. So I call it a sort of cross between a Belgium double and black IPA, because you have this dryness and bitterness of the black IPAs and a little bit of roastiness. I added a little bit of roasted rye in this beer to get the touch of the roastiness.
You can taste all of it. It's all in there, and it's available right there. I have to admit that while I am really enjoying this beer, it's the other beer that you brought that kind of blew my mind. And I said to you, I thought maybe it was a Belgian pale ale, but it doesn't really fit that style either. It has a little Belgian yeast character to it, but it's hopped like an American pale ale. And it fits. A lot of times I don't like a hoppy beer with Belgian yeast. I feel like the two flavors clash. In your case, it's not. That's not the case.
I have to say this is our favorite beer. It's called Terrace Bulba, and it's our session beer. The beer we drink literally every single day, and we are extremely selfish brewer. Maybe you understood that, and we really made this beer for us, and it's a true story. When we had this tiny microbrewery, when we first started, we could make very small batches, and we could easily drink one full batch ourselves. So we were mainly brewing our main beers in the beer at the time, and it's a beer 6%. That was even too strong for us after a hard day of work in the brewery. We wanted something lighter, so we made the Terrace Bulba 4.5, dry, bitter, very simple, but packed with noble European hops. And it's really a beer we like.
One of the things that I've noticed about Yvonne's beers is the texture and the minerality of the water, and you work with that Brussels very hard water, and it just has this beautiful balance with the bitterness that you don't really get in very many. Certainly in this country, you don't get it in American beers, but it's really a wonderful texture.
Yeah, you pointed something that is extremely important for us is the balance. We love bitterness. We eventually love extreme bitterness. It's not a problem for us, but we always try to get a balance in our beers. It's very important. And this is something I got from talking with old brewers, actually. They all come back to that balance. It's something very important.
What is the average bitterness of your beers, IBUs?
The average must be 55. We have nothing lower than 50. I always say we start talking from 50.
And you know I love hops, so that's why I love this guy.
If anybody has any questions, you could raise your hand. You'll have to come up, but I'll hand you the microphone if you want to ask either of these guys any questions. We got a lot of brewers that we're going to interview today, too. But a round of applause for Yvonne from Brewery de la Seine, if we can. He made it all the way out.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He made it all the way out on the Firestone private jet.
And I would just...
It's a cargo plane that...
that says FedEx.
I just wanted to add that, I met Yvonne we were just talking at a craft brewers conference a few years ago, and just last year I had the kind of the rare honor to travel with Vinny from Russian River and a few other brewers from the United States, and we traveled and we had fresh beer right at Yvonne's brewery, but added to that, Yvonne knows Brussels like no one else, and took me on probably the best pub crawl I've ever been on in my life. And it was good
fun.
Food, beautiful beers, and it was just an amazing time.
And this guy can really drink. I can tell you.
For a little guy, he can really put him away.
I'm a professional.
That's true.
It's a good point you bring up, too. I've been to Brussels, and if you don't have an inside edge, it's a little difficult to find. I mean, I think we build it up over here. We love Belgian beer. We've had so many wonderful sours and Belgian styles. And I kind of got there and thought I'd just find it everywhere, and you don't. You got to search it out.
You don't, unfortunately, because Belgium almost destroyed most of its brewing heritage the last years. It's several years I'm writing about beer, and I wrote an article in the 90s. I was really desperate. For me, Belgian beer was totally finished, honestly, because all the beers that were classic at the time, the classics defined by Michael Jackson in the 80s. In the 90s, almost all of them have been spoiled by the brewers because they wanted to make more money, and they did it on a stupid way. They wanted to send containers and containers in America, and they stupidly thought that the Americans wanted sweet things, because that's the image we have from America in Europe. So they changed the recipe. They made like cheap beers without any interest. And a lot of our classics were totally spoiled at that time. And now, 15 years later, it took us always a lot of time in Belgium to understand the things. They understand that the American market is asking for the real stuff. And now they are trying to get back to the old methods and old recipes to make the beers they spoiled better, actually. It's very, very strange.
I'm glad you finished the story that way, because for a minute it sounded like America ruined Belgian beer. It's our fault again.
No, not at all. Honestly, you guys saved some styles like the lambic beers. Honestly, I worked for Cantillon for more than 20 years. I was related to their museum, then I was a brewer there, whatever. So I know their story very well. I mean, and if there wasn't been a market for their beers in America, they wouldn't have been able to survive, and the lambic style would have simply died, actually. So we really owe you that. You're a fantastic passion. You are very professional when you are passionate about something, and you create a real market, and this really saved a lot of our traditional beers.
It's the rest of the time that we're just fat and lazy. But when we're passionate about something, we will save the market. All right. Thanks to both of you. Matt, you invited a ton of breweries this year. How many breweries do we have total?
Well, actually, it's not a ton. We only added, I believe, 6 or 7 new breweries, and I think all but 1 or 2 from last year returned. So, the idea here is to keep a relatively small number of exceptional quality beers here, not to overwhelm, and also only to sell a limited number of tickets. So I apologize to those of you who had a hard time getting tickets. I think in the end, though, you got in and figured it out. And, the spirit of this whole event is about better beer and, bringing it to Paso Robles and sharing our passion for beer with the Central Coast, and at the same time bringing our favorite friends from around the world and letting them experience the Central Coast, because we're so in love with this place. And good beer, good wine, good food, wonderful weather. It doesn't get any better than this. Cows.
I woke up to the sound of a rodeo going on behind my van this morning. Did you know that? It was terrible. It's, yeah, we're on the Central Coast again. It's awesome. All right.
I just wanted to add a little thing. I just wanted to say a huge thank to my friend Matt who invited me here. I'm very, very proud of that, honestly, because I'm a huge fan of his delightful beers, and it means a lot for me to be here today. So thank you.
Thanks for being here, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, unless anybody else has a question, I've got one last question, and we'll do a audience question too. Matt, you did joke about people wondering how they get into the festival, how they get invited. Have you lost any brewer friends because you didn't invite them to the Invitational?
I sure hope not. I mean, let's face it, if we invited all of our friends, there'd be 400 breweries and we'd be just replicating the Great American Beer Festival. So everyone's got to understand,
So you've got a little understanding out of people.
I hope
then.
so.
Okay, good.
Hi. My question is, you often hear about, when you hear talks from the people that started the craft beer movement, they often thank the larger breweries, the macro breweries, Coors, Pabst, Miller, about sharing when that movement was growing. And now we have, obviously, some conflict that's starting to get a little bit ugly. And yet, realistically, there has been a lot of influence between Belgium and America, and Germany and America, Europe and America. And obviously they don't give as much material support as they did to the brewers back in the day. Long story short, do you guys see a point where both markets start to butt heads a little bit? Because you're not seeing that now, but 20 years, 10 years from now?
I think that one of the reasons that our breweries coexist so well together is that we're small, and Yvonne's making beers for his regional market. Firestone's making beers for our regional market. We really don't cross into other large breweries' territories to speak. We never think that we're competing. We actually feel like we're enhancing the market for each other. And sure, I suppose a day will come when there won't be enough space on the grocery store shelf for all of us. But the best beers always seem to survive. And it'll be a sad day when it goes back to consolidation and big brewery marketing techniques. But I think that there'll always be a passionate following for breweries as long as we're alive. I don't think that this movement's going anywhere. Sure. And so I'm pretty confident that we'll still get along.
Yeah, definitely.
Build bigger grocery stores. It'll be fine.
All right, everybody. Matt Brynildson and Yvonne Baets hanging out with us today. We got
Thanks
more
for coming,
interviews
everyone.
coming up.
Thank you,
Hang
guys.
in there.